Put on the beat. This is Shamar production.
Stick to the script, current events. My name is Shamar, and to my left.
Shahada Moth.
All right, so y'all know how we do this. The current events is just kind of things that have been going on in the news that we feel like are oftentimes relevant to the nation, fascinating factoids, things of that nature that, are things that you should stay privy to, because like the scriptures say, Sirach 5:15, to not be ignorant of anything. It also says, observing the days, paraphrasing, observing the days, observing the times, for the days are evil. So, like I said, we just got a couple of things. It's not going to be as long. We appreciate the patience, and we just going to jump straight into it. Can you take us over to the PowerPoint? Okay, so it says, ex-Minneapolis officer Thomas Lane sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for violating George Floyd's civil rights.
Yeah, this is from CNN. Thomas Lane, one of the 3 former Minneapolis police officers convicted in February for violating George Floyd's civil rights, was sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison on Tuesday. Federal prosecutors had asked Judge Paul A. Magnuson to sentence Lane between 5.25 and 6.5 years for his role in the fatal restraint of Floyd on a Minneapolis street in May of 2020. Earl Gray, Lane's attorney, asked for a sentence of 2.25 years. Judge Magnuson said that Lane had a minimal role in the incident, adding that he is a person of outstanding character. The judge also noted he received 145 letters in support of Lane. It is not unusual to receive letters, but I have never received so many letters, he said.
So they kind of just doing the classic, right? So to be clear, this is not Derek Chauvin, which was the actual cop who had his knee on George Floyd's neck. This was one of the other officers that was present at the time that George Floyd, that they killed him, right? So so it's a little easier because he wasn't directly the guy. It was kind of like, either everybody can go down or they can kind of offer somebody up. And he was very clearly guilty on camera. And I even saw videos at the time where, for Derek Chauvin, which was the actual officer that killed him, there were people who zoomed in and slowed the video down to show that his feet had come completely off the ground and that he was putting all of his weight entirely on his knees, specifically, obviously, trying to kill him, right? So they broke out the classics, he only did a little bit. He's a good guy. And there were 145 letters in support. I mean, we see letters, but never this many. It just goes to show how great he is, right? So they said he had a minimal role. But the thing is, let me see. I want to read down, just real quick, I want to highlight this. It says Lane, a rookie officer on his 4th day on the job, held down Floyd's legs during the arrest, while Kwong restrained his torso, and Thao stood nearby and held back a crowd of upset bystanders. So the guy that's getting convicted, Thomas Lane, he held down Floyd's legs. My whole thing is, first and foremost, that's not a minimal role. You were directly involved. The guy that was holding back the crowd, that's a minimal role. Didn't really have a whole bunch. If someone's going to be tried, they probably go after him last because he wasn't directly physically involved in the arrest, right? This guy was. And my whole thing is, it's very simple logic. First and foremost, if George Floyd would have had use of his legs while he's being restrained, at a certain point, it's going to be instinct. I can't breathe. I'm going to have to move. Officer can get mad. He can get more hostile. They might throw a punch. You can eat that, but you need to survive. But he couldn't even do that or get any kind of leverage as he's restrained because he's got his arms behind his back to be able to just flip him off or get to a comfortable side where he would be able to breathe. So that's not what I would consider a minimal role, right? But another simple thing is, if officers, a lot of times you have, we were just talking about this. You have like in the military, right? Everybody's in squads, platoons, battalions, units. Everybody's kind of grouped up. There's very little individuality. In the police force, even though they're wearing a uniform, approved haircuts and facial hair, and even have, ARs and shotguns, they have military-grade weapons. They're not held to that same standard. It's everybody's an individual, yet they're all somehow connected, but only when they want to be. If it was the same thing where everybody was penalized, like say a law went into effect to charge, if one officer is charged with murder, basically everybody that was present is guilty. It would be very different, right? If there was some level of accountability, it wouldn't be as simple as these kinds of things happening where there are plenty of people there who could stop it, who could do something, who could, be able to make a difference in that, because there would be some kind of consequence, right? I just want to go to Deuteronomy 28 real quick. Well, you talking about cursed? It's crazy, man. Hold on one second. Let's start at give me verse 50.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young.
He said, not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. That's first and foremost, that's who we're dealing with. We're dealing with Esau, right? We're subject to all of, we're subject to their leadership and their authority, that kind of stuff. All these different things, we're cursed. We don't, and I wanted to find the specific verse, but the scriptures say we're not going to have assurance of our life. We always have to understand every day that we leave. 66, Con, can you give me that up?
I'm going to read 65 and 66. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
So all that depression, no guarantee of your life, living in fear, the stress, anxiety, schizophrenia.
You know exactly what that's like when you see them lights flip up behind you when you're driving.
All type of fear. Everywhere we go, our people in a state of fear. We living in a state of fear of never knowing if it's going to be your turn or never knowing what's going to happen. Go ahead.
And thy life shall hang in the doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life.
We really don't know if we're going to live or die. We really don't know. It's easy to feel confident. We hope to feel confident, but we understand, there's really never a scenario where we're just like 100%. You are always in the hands of the Most High, right? We're always in the hands of the Most High. And then it becomes a lot more apparent and in our face when a situation like this arises. So
going back to the article, Floyd's brother, Philanese, took to the court Thursday about the effect of Lane's actions. Our family was given a death sentence May 25. We will never get George back, he said. Officer Lane did not intervene in one way or another, he added. And then it also says Lane, Thao, and Quang were each convicted of violating Floyd's right during the fatal restraint. Thao and Quang were also found guilty of additional federal charges earlier this year for failing to intervene to stop Chauvin. A sentence date for Thao and Quang has not been set. Last month, Lane pled guilty in a state court to aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. As part of a plea deal, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison's office and defense attorneys jointly recommended to the court a sentence of 3 years to be served concurrently with his federal sentence in a federal institution, according to Ellison's offices. He is scheduled to be sentenced on September 21 on the state charge, according to the court. So he might receive more time in prison because he still has yet to be sentenced in the state for charges. So we'll see what happens.
That's crazy, but more than likely, it's not going to be anything severe.
It's not going to be anything too terribly substantial.
Here's the crazy part, right? California repeals provision criminalizing loitering related to possible prostitution. So imagine, right? It was like, well, prostitution still. Well, you know what? Let's read the article first. It says a controversial California bill repealing loitering related to possible prostitution was signed into law Friday by Governor Gavin Newsom. A provision in state law previously allowed police to arrest those who delay or linger without a lawful purpose if it appeared they were trying to engage in sex work. Police can no longer use this charge, and those who have been convicted are able to petition the court for resentencing or dismissal according to the law's language. So previously, I mean, you know, the scriptures speak about a woman that was dressed in the attire of a harlot, right? It's obvious when a woman is, you know, it could be something as simple as maybe she doesn't respect herself, but it also very clearly is obvious when she's prostituting herself, when she's looking for that attention, she's looking to capture the eyes. On the streets of LA, there's no guesswork. It's not, is that, you know, oh my gosh, it'd be like fishnet outfits, just panties on. Some of them completely naked, just shoes on and a purse. I mean, it's crazy. You know, when I remember Jake said that a while ago, Jake's called like hoes and stuff like that. People might take offense, like, no, these are, you know, it really is prostitution that takes place on these streets, right, you know, in LA, right here, right up the street. So basically, previously, they would be able to see a woman dressed in that kind of attire and say, okay, you clearly out here prostituting, right? Clearly out here doing it. But now they're saying they can't arrest anybody off the suspicion, off of just the view. So if a woman is half naked on the corner, she see the police coming, she ain't even got to worry about it. You can't prove what I was out here doing. This is how I want to dress. They can't do nothing. It says, in a letter to the state Senate, Newsom made clear this law does not legalize prostitution and that his administration will monitor the law's effects. Like, you're not full-blown making it legal, but what exactly is the recourse? If you can see a woman standing on the corner with practically nothing on, she been there for 4, 5, 6 hours, it's pretty obvious. You know, she getting in the car, she leaving with people. They would literally have to choose to follow a prostitute, choose to, you know, get out and actually catch them in the act in order to be able to arrest them, as opposed to being able to clearly say, okay, well, she's out here prostituting herself. We about to lock her up. So it's like, I don't know. I've never really seen the police really crack down on prostitution, even when it was you could arrest them based off of the image and the look. You know, it's like these officers, I don't know. It's another relationship that they must have, because it's quite a few officers that go up and down Figueroa and don't mess with the girls. I don't know. And now this law just makes it all the more convenient because now they're not even legally obligated. It says, the new version of the law doesn't decriminalize soliciting or engaging in prostitution. Instead, it eliminates the loitering offense that leads to harmful treatment of people for simply appearing to be a sex worker. A statement from bill sponsor, State Senator Scott Weiner said. It says, supporters of the bill say that the previous law has long discriminated against transgender people, and people of color, as law enforcement is allowed to use their own discretion in what constitutes loitering. So they just focus on that kind of stuff, but my whole thing is it's not loitering itself. They're not about to start pulling up to liquor stores and gas stations saying, hey, y'all can't be here. Right. That's not the crime. That's not the offense. That's still going to be happening. They're specifically looking for people who were, you know, that may appear to be a sex worker. So my whole thing is, if you see a bunch of men in all white tees and you know what I'm saying, Dickies shorts or Dickies pants,
They're not prostituting themselves.
right? Like it's obvious they're not out there trying to attract nobody to sell themselves. That's obvious. But if you see a woman that's almost completely naked with nothing on, you know what I'm saying, just something barely to cover herself up. She got a bikini on at 9 p.m. It's 72 degrees outside. Well, what do you think she's out there to do? But now they can't arrest because it's you can no longer arrest off the suspicion of just the appearance, what it looks like. But my whole thing is like, how does that defend against black people?
It doesn't defend against black people, but they use black people to push their agenda.
Oh yeah, it's all about us getting more rights and the struggle.
Right.
And most of our people, they don't even understand what it is. Not only don't understand fully what it is that they're being given, they're just happy to get something.
Right.
But they also don't understand what it's going to cost.
Exactly.
A lot of times people are glad to get things. Oh, I get this, I get that. All right, cool. You gotta tell me no more. And then on the back end, that's all the stuff that gets passed into the bill. Didn't nobody read them stimulus bills? Everybody was like, "We getting money."
Right.
I don't need to know what else is gonna happen. I don't need, if the money is in the bill, then sign it. It's all other kind. It's all kind of stuff that was written in, all kind of stuff that was put into effect outside of a stimulus bill. But that's all people were fixated on. So there's something to gain. I don't care what I gotta lose. Well, I don't care what comes with it. This is what I need. It says the new version of the law doesn't Oh, I'm sorry, I just read that. But where was I? I just saw a specific part. It says if signed into law, okay, in a June news released encouraging Newsom to veto the bill, the NCOSE said the legislation would cause even more harm to marginalized communities. If signed into law, SB 357 would severely limit law enforcement's ability to identify victims of human trafficking. So this is what I'm talking about, the cost, right? They could easily sit up here and say, she don't look like she's happy, or she's crying, or she's doing this, she's doing that. Let's go check on her. Hey, do you need some kind of help? Because there might be one, you never know. There might be that one officer that just sees somebody that catches his eye and his heart goes out. He has a moment of humanity and says, you know what? Are you okay? No, I've been kidnapped. I'm forced to be out here. This guy 2 cars up, he has a gun aimed at me right now. Get in the car. We'll get you out of here. It limits their ability to be able to identify because they can't just pull over and say, what are you doing? They can't make arrests based off of looks. It says even if the victims are minors, 16, 17, however old, on a corner, don't belong there. But they're like, well, we're going to arrest her. What are we going to arrest her on? Because we can't just take her in and try to bring her up on some kind of charge. That might save somebody. That's the crazy part. Not only would this law have been preventing wickedness because prostitutes could have been arrested on site, but now on top of that, you can't actually help the people who it was helping. A super young girl who's out there forced to sell herself because somebody, is threatening her or whatever the case may be. She's been convinced and manipulated into thinking that what she's feeling is invalid, that this must be love, that no one's coming to save me. They could have pulled up and said, you know what, she looks young. We're going to get you out of here. Now, we'll charge you with criminal loitering. Nothing serious. Nothing that is even going to pop up on a background check. It might, but I'm just saying it's not going to be nothing serious. A job, look at that, and they don't give you a job. It's just because they didn't want to give you the job.
Right.
But they might bring her up on something like that so that it looks legit to whoever it is that's threatening her. She gets an opportunity to get away, to get sober, to potentially get help. If she's in the system, to figure out, if she has foster parents and all that kind of stuff. It's all different kinds of things that might have been able to happen. And now that's not even an option because they're like, well, what are we going to arrest her on? We're going to bring him in for.
Keep reading.
It says, many officers rely on the loitering laws to initiate trafficking investigations that have led to serious convictions for traffickers and pimps.
Now they don't have that option. Just like you were saying.
And then it's crazy because they really trying to convince the world that gay is the new black. Like,
Right.
Like everything that has to happen now with us, it got to be something gay. Like it's just like the same struggle.
Right.
Like we're being discriminated for who you are. Like nah, I can't.
Not quite.
You could go home today, change your clothes, and come out the house with a dress on. You look like a woman. A man can go home and get out them thigh shorts. You can get out that crop top, throw on you a regular shirt and some pants, and you can change your whole identity in a couple hours. We can't erase our bloodline. We can't reverse the curses that are on us that simply. So that is nowhere near the same struggle. It's irritating, but that's what the world is trying to do to get everybody to rally, especially, black folk, especially Israel. As long as the world has Israel, you got everything, right? Look at how many civilizations have thrived only when we were in captivity. People still to this day are holding on to what Egypt used to be.
Right.
Egypt, the Mecca of the people and the motherhood of this and the motherland. And like, bro, Egypt ain't been popping since we left.
Right.
Everybody's still, Israel, thousands of years later, still trying to go back to Egypt. Bro, Egypt has been dead for a while. Let it go. But all these different places always have are always being built up by Israel when Israel is in captivity. So they try to get Israel invested in everything. They teaching about the Ukrainian war in black churches. Not only is them white folks, them is different kind of, those are the actual actual kind of foreign white people. Them ain't the up the street white people. They don't even speak your language. They probably got all different kinds of names and slurs to call you nigga.
Right.
They got all different types of biases. Ain't too many black folks in Russia. Ain't too many Israelites in Russia. Not a whole bunch. And they sitting up here constantly teaching our people, pulling our people's heartstrings, getting donations and fundraisers and all kind of stuff that's coming from the hood. Whole time that has nothing to do with us. What was Ukraine's support for George Floyd? What was Ukraine's support for all the things that we've been going through in the civil rights movement and all that kind of stuff? And even then, they still have had a part in our captivity. So it's just crazy. But I wanted to read that. I want to read this because this is how they just tried to tie it in. Just let me know when you catch it. Eliminating that section of the law deters police from relying on bias rather than evidence to criminalize otherwise legal activities like walking, dressing, or standing in public, and results in the harassment of LGBTQ, black and brown communities for simply looking like a sex worker to law enforcement, Cass told CNN in a statement. You see how they tried to, it's everybody, really, you know what I'm saying? First of all, I'm not going to say we don't get harassed for walking, but why would you dress in public? You getting dressed in public, that is some, not to be explicit, but you don't respect yourself. You getting dressed in public to what extent?
Right.
You get butt naked in public and change your clothes, and that's supposed to be acceptable? Yeah, you kind of do look like a sex worker. I don't feel like that should be outlawed. Somebody getting naked in public, you walking with your kids. Imagine a man just got to change his pants. He ain't got no drawers on. He going commando, and he changing his pants. Oh, man, what are you tripping about? It's not illegal. Like, what?
Right.
Wouldn't be cool. But these are the things that are happening.
Place is wicked, man.
Former chief of staff to L.A. sheriff admits belonging to alleged Grim Reaper deputy gang. So I feel like we talk about this almost every month, right? It's always something that's happening in L.A. and California, but especially in L.A. New laws, specific laws, and then we've been talking about these the gangs amongst the cops, amongst the LAPD, Compton PD, amongst a lot of these precincts for the past couple of months. But now the chief of staff out of the LAPD actually admits he is a part of that gang.
This is Los Angeles. The current and former members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, with close ties to Sheriff Alex Villanueva, testified Friday about how they know about alleged deputy gangs within the department. Villanueva's former chief of staff, Larry Del Messe, made a stunning admission under oath, admitting he belonged to an alleged deputy gang known as the Grim Reapers. I was a member of the gang of the Grim Reapers, Del Messe testified by video during a public hearing in the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission's investigation on deputy gangs. Villanueva has denied the existence of deputy gangs. Del Messe was asked if he ever got a Grim Reaper tattoo. Yes, Del Messi
So
told
wait,
the
so
special
wait
counsel.
a minute. So that was a lot, right? It just kept getting wilder and wilder.
Right.
So I'm like, we got to just go through it, and we're gonna hit the points. So first and foremost, they're talking about whether or not there are deputy gangs, right?
Right.
There's been a whole lot of allegations, speculations, a whole lot of he say she say. Now in what was it? The Compton gang, they got tattoos, they got T-shirts,
Right. All that stuff.
like they was all
They
out.
got mouse pads, bro.
You know what I'm saying? They was all out, like just reckless, bold, just bold. So
And
that-
it's crazy. The sheriff, he's not saying he doesn't have any knowledge. He's flat out denying there are no gangs.
as if that's very different. That's very different. If he would have said, I don't know about any of that,
Right.
that's different. That means it could be happening, but you're not aware. He's
Right.
saying, nah, there are none. So that means one of two things. The first thing means you should have done an investigation.
Right.
The only way that you can know that something is not possible or to know that something is possible is if you investigate. You have to gather some kind of information. The second thing is his chief of staff comes out and says he is a part of a gang. That means you knew that it existed and you chose to cover it up.
Right.
That's all that means. So, and it's crazy because they all have killer names. Grim Reapers, and what was the other one?
I don't even remember, man.
It was like Hitman. It was like just the most very clearly we out here killing people kind of
Right.
name. Man, I gotta look it up real quick. Compton Executioners. That's what it is. The Executioners and the Grim Reapers. You wonder why so many police killings? They literally are making a sport out of hunting so-called Negroes and Latinos. Because I'm not seeing other nations be in the news. I'm not seeing other nations being killed on camera like George Floyd was. I'm not seeing the other nations being subject to the things that we're subject to. So you literally just see, like, time and time again, how they're making a sport of killing our people. Counting bodies, who got the highest body count, and all this kind of stuff. What did you say the name was?
Yeah. And it's another article has 8 other subgroups, which is crazy.
All in the gang, all in the cops, right? So it's crazy. I just want to read this real quick. Lamentations 4:17. It says, "As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us." So many people, so many of our people. I went to I was at Walmart the other day, right? It's people out in front of the Walmart, and this is in Compton, right? It's people out in front of there. It's us, it's our people, familiar faces. And they out there, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? And they asked me, and I said, no, thank you. And I heard a guy from behind me, he's like, oh, yeah, man, Compton is going to be tough. Compton's going to be ridiculous. It's like people don't even want to look at you. I'm like, bro, y'all out here asking people to vote. Because we look where we at. I've yet to see like some real legislation and change that's going to change our quality of life, that's going to change us being killed in the streets, that's going to change the way these cops is moving, that's going to change the poverty, that's going to change what's happening on the streets. I'm yet to see some kind of legislation that's going to make a significant difference. And everybody argues for years it's because we've never had a black president. We've never had this. We never had that. We need to be deeper and more rooted into their system. That black president came and went, and where are we at?
I always ask people, how are we going to get control of their system?
Like, they've been setting up the rules,
Right.
got hundreds of years of advantage setting up the rules, and are still ratio-wise outnumbering the population or the representatives and senators and all that kind of stuff. It ain't a whole lot of our people even in there to be able to represent us.
Not only that, but they make the rules. So anytime we might get an opportunity to have some meaningful change, they're just gonna change the rules. Like, they would literally have to relinquish control, and why would they do that if they don't have to?
Esau not going to.
Absolutely not.
It says verse 18, they hunt our steps that we cannot go in our streets. and our end is near. Our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. So it's like, man, our people literally being hunted. You got the Grim Reapers and the executioners on deck, on duty, all in the cops. Them is the same people that people are calling, constantly pulling people over and all kind of stuff. And they're literally making sport out of killings.
But check this out, right? This is how they always flip the script, right?
Mm.
So Villanueva defied a subpoena to testify before the commissioner for the 5th time, saying he fears for his safety. This is the sheriff that fears for his safety, right? The sheriff fears for his security because he has been informed that members of the public have attended and wear shirts or jackets that say F the sheriff. Special counsel Bert Dixler announced at the hearing. So he's afraid of the public who wear shirts that say F the sheriff.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's a real, like, that's not even a good excuse. That's a really crappy excuse.
It literally is a political circus designed for political damage. It is not designated to get anything of value for either the community or me as the employer, Villanueva said Friday. How? I don't, like, you really have to have some confidence in your power and your position to utter foolishness like this.
Here's the crazy part, though, right? Right at the bottom of the article, it says, Delmise, which is the previous chief of staff, also explained to the committee why he didn't have a lengthy tenure as Villanueva's chief of staff. People that told him yes got promotions, one after another, that continue on to this day. I had a very short run in that administration for a reason, because I learned from this case not to be the messenger. I learned from other situations not to speak my truth, and overall, that was not appreciated, said Del Messe, who is now retired from the LA County Sheriff's Department. So it's like prison in there. He joined the gang, and now he's like, look, I knew not to be the whistleblower. I knew not to be the one that said anything. Whoever tells Villanueva yes, that's who's getting promoted. So it's a whole bunch of yes men, and that leads to the cult and the gang mindset.
That's not just the cult and the gang mindset. That's the American way. If you look in any industry, that's how it's shaped. Leaders at the top, they don't want people who confront them and
Right.
no, they want people who are going to do their bidding willingly without asking. And they make sure that that's what you want to do by punishing you if you don't. That's the American way. That's how it's always been.
Crazy. Speaking of which, and it got mentioned in this article, so I won't spend too much time on it. It says Sheriff Villanueva again refuses to testify before a civilian panel investigating deputy gangs. I just want to hit like a couple of quick little, unless you have something you want to bring out on it, something quick out of this one. The sheriff who has repeatedly accused the County Board of Supervisors and Inspector General Max Huntsman of pursuing personal political biases and clashes over the alleged deputy gangs and other issues expressed concern in his letter to the commission about demonstrably false statements having already been accepted by the commission. Basically, first and foremost, in that last article, it said he's refused 5 times. So they've asked him 5 times. If he's saying that these things don't exist, because they know if they get him up on the stand, they get him up under oath, it's going to be a problem. He either going to have to blatantly lie, evidence come out, he'll lose everything, or he's just going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to take the stand. That way they can never get me in that predicament. But it's been like 5 different times, and he's refusing to even come and say, you know, to acknowledge or to be questioned to understand the roles of the gangs within the force.
Weren't we last time, or one of the last times we were talking about this, we were talking about someone who didn't show up, they didn't want to testify out of fear of retribution from coworkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing to me how, like, witnesses don't show up because their fear of their fear of the outcome of what might happen from these police force gangs, right, but you have the sheriff who is in fear of the public who wear F the sheriff T-shirts.
That might be his statement, but maybe even he knows. Maybe even he's like, they like, hey, you ain't above. Who knows? You never know. Maybe they like, hey, you ain't above getting it either.
But well, does he have the power? That's the thing. At the end of the day, does he have the power to reform? Does he have the power to, or is it bigger than him?
Well, that's at that point it would be speculation. A lot of that was, but that would be like purely speculation. I can't say. Who knows how involved versus, but obviously he promotes people who tell him yes. So
Right.
Obviously he does have some level of control, and everybody who's in a position of power is being personally chosen and promoted and approved of, endorsed by him. So I would imagine that he has more power than what he's letting on.
The biggest takeaway here is that these police forces are not here to serve the people, and they are not here to protect the people.
Nah, not at all. And it's crazy because as we're talking about that, the Highland Park shooting suspect is indicted on 117 charges.
This is in Chicago. The man accused of opening fire in an Independence Day parade in suburban Chicago has been indicted by a grand jury on 21 first-degree murder counts, 48 counts of attempted murder, and 48 counts of aggravated battery, representing the 7 people killed and dozens wounded in the attack on their beloved holiday event.
So dozens of people, I would assume it's 48, and 7 people that actually got killed. And this wasn't like a Chicago, like a gang kind of thing. It seemed like this was a lone wolf that just took it upon himself, knowing where people were going to gather and causing a mass incident.
This is in Highland Park, and Highland Park is one of the nicer suburbs of Chicago.
Check this out. So these are the people who were affected. I'm towards the bottom. It says authorities have said the wounded range in age from 8 to their 80s, including an 8-year-old boy who was paralyzed from the waist down when the shooting severed his spine. So it says in her first public comments since the shooting, the boy's mother said in a video and written statement released Wednesday that the violence her family and others experienced has taught them to see the unbelievably generous, caring, good, and kind spirit that makes up the vast majority of our world. It's crazy. It's crazy how that's always what they try to paint on in the midst of a tragedy. My whole thing is, it's very clear that our people, first and foremost, the scriptures tell us, we suffer from these curses. Losing our minds, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, Stockholm syndrome, that stuff is real. And it's like exemplified every time you see an article like this. Just like, who was that was killed and their brother was in court and hugged the officer that did it?
It was Gene. I can't remember his name.
You remember
but
what I'm talking about, though?
It was the off-duty female cop who thought she was.
Oh, that's right. She got home.
Thought she was coming home, right, and ended up popping into this brother's apartment who's sitting on the couch in shorts and no shirt, eating ice cream, watching TV, and she kills him. Both of them Gene, I think, something like that.
Oh, yeah, that sounds closer. Basically, you can't get no more chill than that. He's in the house. Like, he really chilling. He basketball shorts, eating ice cream on the couch, shirt off, is hot, relaxing on his own couch. She walks into the wrong apartment, thinks that he broke in. My whole thing is, first and foremost, she obviously had her gun. Second of all, at what point was you going to realize he wasn't a threat? He's on the couch. Let's just say he is a burglar. He on the couch, shirt off, eating ice cream. Oh, man.
Botham Shem Gene.
Yeah. It's just crazy, though. Like, I know, right? It's just crazy how these things happen. And, but it just goes to show, in that incident, right, this woman who kills her neighbor, she ends up going to court, she crying in court. The judge, who's a black woman, comes off and is like crying and gives her a hug. She's straightening her hair. She being all nice to her.
And then
And
gave her a Bible.
and the victim's own biological brother hugs the cop and is like, I forgive you. I'm like, whoa. But it's crazy how much that narrative is constantly being pushed. They had to mention that. Her son got hit in the spine, an 8-year-old. Hit in the spine. Doesn't seem like he'll ever be able to walk again. And she wants to talk about the generosity and kind and caring. And I'm not saying that she hasn't experienced those things, but it's just crazy in the midst of everything else. That's what people choose to highlight, as opposed to the very clear rampant mass shooting problem. How many has it been? And they always say it happens around election time. Man, seems like that's been the case. It's been constant.
Right.
It says Kelly Roberts described her son Cooper Roberts as athletic and fun-loving, but said he has a long road ahead. Cooper was shot in the back. The bullet tore through his body, severely damaging his aorta, liver, esophagus, and spinal cord before exiting through his chest.
Jeez.
Cooper has undergone multiple surgeries and is paralyzed from the waist down. Let me see. During a court hearing presenting the murder charges, prosecutors said police found more than 80 spent shell casings on the rooftop of a building along the parade route from the semi-automatic rifle used in the attack on the ground nearby. And here's how I said it wasn't like some kind of Chicago like gang war kind of thing. It says investigators believe Crimmel blended in with fleeing crowd to get away from the scene, then borrowed his mother's car and briefly contemplated a second attack on a celebration in Madison, Wisconsin, before returning to Illinois, where police arrested him. So it wasn't like it was, because that's usually the narrative, right? It's like, oh, it's the gangs out there, stuff's crazy out there. But this was seemingly a random attack, and he contemplated going to do another attack before deciding not to. And it's crazy because this is not even like strictly an American thing anymore. It's rare that you see mass shootings in other countries, especially other continents.
But it's definitely upticking.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It is becoming like an increasing act nowadays. So this was in Johannesburg. It says a group of people opened fire at a bar in South Africa, killing 15.
Johannesburg, a mass shooting at a tavern in Johannesburg, Soweto Township, has killed 15 people and left others in critical condition, according to the police. Police say they are investigating reports that a group of men arrived in a minibus taxi and opened fire on some of the patrons at the bars shortly before midnight Sunday. Those injured have been taken to Chris Hanai Baragwanath Hospital. The number of cartridges found on the scene indicates that the group of people opened fire in a bar, said the Gauteng Providence Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Elias Moella. The primary investigation suggests that these people were enjoying themselves here in a licensed tavern operating within the right hours, Moella told the Associated Press. All of a sudden, they heard some gunshots. That is when people tried to run out of the tavern. We don't have the full details at the moment of what is the motive.
Wait, look at that. So,
and why they were targeting these people.
We don't have the full details at the moment of what is the motive. So it kind of seems like maybe it's some tribalism. Maybe it's something that we're not understanding. Maybe it's they just pulled up to a bar and opened fire. 15 people got killed. I don't know, it said, and left others, so I don't think it gives an exact number of the amount of people that were injured, but 15 that were killed. You can see that a high caliber firearm was used and it was shooting randomly. They just put up and start shooting. It's crazy.
Start dumping, but there's more, right? In a separate incident, 4 people were shot dead by unknown gunmen at a tavern in Seawaters Township in the coastal city of Pietermaritzburg on Saturday night. So this was the previous night, right? According to the police, 2 men entered the tavern, another tavern, and randomly opened fire on the patrons, killing 2 people in the scene while 2 others were confirmed dead at the hospital. People said 8 other people are receiving treatment in a hospital. The deceased were aged between 30 and 45, and police are investigating charges of murder and attempted murder, police said.
Check that out. So it's other mass shootings that were happening at and around that time that were also seemingly unprovoked. So, I mean, it's just crazy, man. It's like the scriptures say, observe the time. But like these times are evil. We really are seeing like evil that has never been seen in the world. Evil that is like, that's just not even understandable.
Right.
You know, certain things like, and if I'm just being real, and it doesn't condone any of it, but it's like if somebody's starving, because the scriptures speak about, he said, I believe it was Solomon, he said, or David, he said, don't make me rich, because then I'll forget you.
Right.
But then don't make me poor, because then I'll be turned to crime, and basically I'm doing wrong. It's like you could see a man who is starving snatch a purse because he's just so hungry. He's been begging outside McDonald's all day. Nobody gave him enough for him to get some kind of food. He see a lady come in there, man, I know she ain't missed a meal. He snatched something. Of course, it doesn't make it right, but it's kind of a certain sense of compassion and understanding that could be employed, some level of mercy that could be given, because it's like, damn, you know, this man is starving. But then when you have evil that can't nobody understand, nobody in any kind of, no matter what kind of mindset you in or what kind of scenario you bring up, just nobody can understand it. That's how you know it's really wickedness and evil that's going on in the earth. I can never imagine or understand why someone would go into a elementary and open fire, elementary school, just start shooting kids. I can never understand why somebody would just randomly pull up at venues and things with you know what I'm saying, or even churches. Like, not to, you know, obviously our people need to come out of the Christian church, but for those who think that that's the way, or serving with some level of sincerity, because a lot of us used to be Christians, right? A lot of our people, yeah, we speak against it now because we have understanding, but a lot of us growing up, we were at one point Christians thinking that we were doing the right thing, thinking that this is the way to serve the Lord. You want to have some kind of connection with God, you feel like, you know, you want to know the Most High, that's the only thing that's available to you. Somebody go in there and shoot that place up. And somebody who would have had the opportunity or wants to have the opportunity to really repent could be taken out, you know, or could be potentially harmed in one of those incidents. And it's just, under what circumstances would a person even take something like that on and make a decision within themselves to say they just gonna go randomly attack these people? Just like, man. And it's not like they be in quick spurts of emotion. They be typically planned out.
Right.
It's just crazy. So I found this one pretty fascinating. I feel like this was, at least at one point, everybody's favorite candy. Lawsuit claims that Skittles are unfit for human consumption. Not even good for humans altogether.
A group of consumers are suing candy maker Mars, alleging Skittles contain a known toxin that makes the rainbow candies unfit to eat. A class action lawsuit filed on Thursday in Oakland, California by San Leandro resident Janelle Thames alleged that Skittles are unsafe for consumers because they contain heightened levels of titanium dioxide. Seeking a class action status filed in the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of California on Thursday, attorneys for San Leandro resident Janelle Thames said that Skittles were unsafe for consumers because they contain heightened levels of titanium dioxide, TiO2, as a food additive.
But look at this next part.
The lawsuit also said titanium dioxide will be banned in European Union next month after the food safety regulator there deemed it unsafe because of genotoxicity or the ability to change DNA.
So look at that, right? So I'm about to, oh man, that's mind blowing. It's being banned in other parts of the world because it could potentially change DNA. So I remember, what were we studying? I think it was either eugenics. I think it was eugenics, right? A couple years ago. And there was this scientist, and he was a Jake, and he was real effeminate, kind of androgynous, right? and he's explaining this chemical, this compound. I don't remember the name of it, but basically, this chemical or this compound can cause estrogen to function like testosterone, and testosterone to function like estrogen. Which basically, when it was given to frogs before it began human trials, it was able to change the gender of the frog, right? Now, there are certain animals that are used in testing prior to human trials because they say that the DNA of that animal is very similar to a human. Maybe it could be the way that they heal, the way that they do or don't grow back organs, something along those lines that either makes it safe to test on them or they're similar enough to humans to where the animal system is going to have a similar reaction to a human system. You know, kind of what to expect. If it's fatal, then it's likely to be fatal, that kind of thing. So, in this chemical that was able to change the gender, they said that this chemical was being put in tap water. It was being put in the water of the population, right? Who knows if it's being put in bottled water and things that are being manufactured. But for sure, it was going in the tap water. But if it had that effect on frogs, it's likely at some point to have that effect on humans, especially at a large enough amount. But your tap water doesn't just come through the sink. I always think of tap water if you turn the sink on, get some, and then you drink it. People don't do that no more. But you know what else is tap water? Your sink that you wash your dishes and your food and your meat. No matter how much you wash off that sink, you're using tap water to wash off that meat. All those chemicals are just flowing on your food, getting mixed in, and you're ingesting them one way or another. You in the shower, right? That's another big one. Most people open they mouth, brush their teeth in the shower. You getting a whole bunch of this stuff, and it's crazy because it was recently. There was this. This is just my little personal thing. There was a dude who was in my sister's generation, a couple years older than me, but that went to my high school, right? Known ladies man. In high school, he was real cool, ladies man, pretty well known that he was good with it, that he was good with the ladies. And it comes out recently. Actually, it wasn't even comes out. He exposes recently. Sorry, not sorry. I like boys now. Posted himself in a dress and some eyelashes, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what happened? Like, not even making light of the situation and not making him a laughing stock. I was like, man, what happened? Like, something must have happened to him, or, what could have caused such a drastic change for him to have been known as a ladies' man, then to coming out only a couple years later saying, now he's interested strictly in men. And it made me think about that chemical, and it makes me think about stuff like this, where you have things that are being put in food that's regularly marketed, right? Especially if you're an athlete, because it always seems like and I'm going to just try not to get too foolish, but if I'm just being honest, it always seems like there's a certain level of like masculinity that will be found in gay men, right? They don't be all super soft and they be all big buff dudes, right? And it makes me think about that chemical that can make testosterone function as estrogen, that can make this man, who should be a manly man, so to speak, suddenly have feminine characteristics and mannerisms, and to be effeminate, seemingly to no outside influence. How you just wake up one day and be like, you know what? You know what I'm saying? I just feel like trying this. I just don't feel like that's something a normal, healthy, heterosexual man decides to try. But then when you got feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow, right? Taste the rainbow, taste the K. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm like, man, is this a connection that's been in our face all this time? Taste the rainbow?
Who knows?
And it's been this chemical. Who knows how long this is been in production? That's one specific chemical that has one specific effect. Like, in what manner was it being used?
And is Skittles the only candy that uses titanium dioxide?
I'm almost certain I've seen titanium dioxide on more than on the back of Skittles. It says, Mars Inc. uses titanium dioxide to produce Skittles' rainbow of artificial colors. What a coincidence, it's also used to create the rainbow. In October, my bad.
Oh, you got
Go
it.
ahead.
In October 2016, the candy maker shared in a press release its intention to remove the titanium dioxide from its products in the coming years. But titanium dioxide is still used in products like Skittles today, the lawsuit states. This was in 2016.
So yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They have to have known about it. It's not like this, this, if it would have got added this year and taken out this year, oh, of course, that's obvious. But it was found in 2016, and that was what, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And that was when it was found, and they were actually kind of pushing for it. So imagine how much more has been done, how much more DNA has been altered, people damaged, minds infected, all by this very popular candy.
According to the lawsuit, titanium dioxide is used in paint, adhesives, plastics, and roofing materials, and can cause DNA, brain and organ damage, as well as lesions in the liver and kidneys.
So imagine that. All these people that's getting sick, all these people that got it, like brain damage, organ damage. It's used in roofing and construction materials. Adhesives, it's used in glue. So that's my whole thing. How does something like that make its way into a food, into any kind of food? Doesn't matter if it's a candy, doesn't matter if it was a slice of bread, some salt. How does something like that make its way into food? That's not the only way that you can get food to be colored. And it's mind-blowing because they said still using products like Skittles. I don't think that's exclusive.
Right.
So what else is this being used in that people are regularly consuming? Next thing you know, it's causing damage to the brain because homosexuality was considered a mental illness up until, I believe, the late 90s or the 70s.
Yeah.
One of those two. I gotta go back and fact check that. Or you can look that up on your own. It was considered a mental illness. And it was being researched and studied as people that were mentally ill because that was not normal for men to be attracted to men and women to be attracted to women. So when you look at it could cause not brain damage. Did it say brain damage? You look at organ damage. It could basically cause a number of different. Oh, yeah, organ and brain damage.
Yeah.
So if you look at people having irregular behaviors like homosexuality, especially seemingly randomly, right? What would make a heterosexual man suddenly come out as homosexual after years of being a ladies' man? After you got married and got kids and all this other kind of stuff, all these different scenarios where these men suddenly realize they're gay. Maybe their brain is damaged. Maybe it's some real something internal that's going on. Maybe not just a psychological experience or some kind of post-traumatic stress. Maybe it's also because some of these cases are seemingly random.
Right.
Where did that come from? Maybe it's his brain is damaged. He can't think straight. He can't differentiate. There's no telling to what extent. Because if it's used in paint and all that kind of stuff, lead causes severe issues with the brain, hallucinations and all that kind of stuff. People dying from lead paints that were still being painted before it was outlawed. You never know what kind of effect that's been happening on the populace for how many years.
And this is something that you talk about, right? So in May 2021, the European Food and Safety Authority announced that titanium dioxide can no longer be considered safe as a food additive. However, the food additive is still legal in the United States. According to the FDA's Code of Federal Regulation, the color additive titanium dioxide may be safely used for coloring foods generally. However, the FDA regulates that the quantity of the titanium dioxide must not exceed 1% of the food's total weight.
If it's used in glue, roofing materials, and adhesives, all this other kind of stuff, known to cause all this damage, how do you get a safe amount of poison?
Right.
Oh, don't worry about it. As long as it's so diluted that and what happens if somebody messes up? What happens if it's a little bit extra? It's probably not going to be lethal. It's probably just going to give you some brain damage.
Right.
What happens if someone eats a whole lot of Skittles? Maybe it's an athlete burning off all them calories anyway.
Right.
You want to have 2 packs of Skittle after practice. Now, your body not going to show it, but then your brain, you're slowly damaging your brain, eating massive amounts. What about if that person is not adhering to the, the serving size?
Definitely not.
They got the share bag, the little pouch they give you, and they want to down that whole bag. They just love Skittles. What kind of damage is it doing? And here's the crazy part. The lawsuit seeks unspecified damages for fraud and violations of California consumer protection laws. Unspecified. Then who is it going to go to?
Right.
There ain't no telling how many people, because I don't think it gets mentioned in this article, but this is also a known carcinogen. How many cases of cancer is this responsible for? How many cases of death, brain damage, organ damage, real sickness and issues is this responsible for?
How much of this 1% is a contributor to 1% of all the other products that may contain harmful chemicals
Right.
that cause these things that seem to come out of nowhere, like cancers and all these other kind of illnesses, mental and physical.
Right. So you eating a whole bunch of stuff that has titanium dioxide. All of it is super small, so-called safe amounts.
Right.
But what happens if you have just a day where you just Skittles and all these food colorings and all this artificial stuff? Eventually, it's going to give you some kind of effect because it's going to be just strong enough for it to actually mean something. Man. And it's not even like there's a warning like, hey, don't combine this with these other products.
No.
Almost done. If monkeypox spreads through sexual contact, is it an STD?
Here we go.
Sounds like it.
This is the Washington Post. New York, for most of the 6 decades that monkeypox has been known to affect people, it was not known as a disease that spreads through sex. Now that has changed. The current outbreak is by far the biggest involving the virus, and it is being designated by a global emergency. So far, officials say that all evidence indicates that the disease has spread mainly through the networks of men who have sex with men. It clearly is spreading as an STI, sexually transmitted infection, at this point, said Dr. Tom Inglesby, director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security.
So check that out. All evidence indicates that the disease has spread mainly through networks of men who have sex with men, gay men, right? I don't know why they always try to say, you know what I'm saying? They always try to not say gay straight up,
Right.
but it's very clearly gay. Like that's the definition of gay. And it's saying it's mostly being spread through those kinds of networks. It's spreading through sexual contact and is considered as a sexually transmitted infection. So it's very clear that, and remember a couple months ago as we were learning about monkeypox,
Right.
we was like, well, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It kind of sounds like, well, now it's not speculation.
Right.
It's confirmed. It may have been, sometimes we use humor to kind of make light of things or to make things a little more digestible, make it a little more fascinating to learn about these kinds of things. But the reality was that really it is an STD. It really is only infecting or mainly infecting gay men. And then it was like, I think the last time we read about it, it was like 28 cases. 26 of them was openly gay.
Right.
And then the other 2 was like...
It was a couple of women. It was a couple of women, and it was like, well, who was they sleeping with?
Right. It was like, maybe you got some questions you got to ask because...
That part.
Hey, God forbid he really be the one that, get something and ain't out there doing nothing like, oh, man, that's tragic. But out of 30 or 28, it's only 2. But now it's being confirmed. Like, it's definitely a sexually transmitted disease. It's definitely being contracted and transmitted mainly through sexual contact.
It says to protect the people at the highest risk while trying to contain the spread, public health agencies are focusing their attention on those men and attacking the virus based on how it is behaving now. On Wednesday, the head of the World Health Organization advised men at risk for monkeypox to consider reducing their sexual partners for the moment.
Advised men at risk. Say it. Who are they? Right. It's crazy because that's the thing, though. They're trying not to make this a gay thing. Right? They're trying not to openly say, this is the, like similar to AIDS, right? It's obvious that, or at least it became to be known that heterosexual people could contract AIDS, but it was predominantly through homosexuality, right? Same thing here. And my thing is, maybe these people are not strictly heterosexual. Maybe they're bisexual. So they're going both ways, and that's how you suddenly pop up with a woman who's been given this disease, and she's like, well, I can't be possibly, engaging in homosexual, men having sex with men. She's not able to be there. So she's like, well, where's this coming from?
So this is crazy, right? But But this is a complicated outbreak that that may shift in how it spreads and which population groups are most affected. There's also a debate about whether monkeypox should be called a sexually transmitted disease, with some critics complaining that the term creates a stigma and could be used to vilify gay and bisexual men. God forbid.
Right, right. Like, clearly to protect, and that's why I said they don't want to use gay. Men who have sex with men, like that, bro, just say gay. Like, honestly, I feel like the second one is worse. I would have rather have read than just say that they was gay. Like, oh, okay. But that's the thing. First and foremost, it becomes obvious who is gay. Then it also becomes obvious that this is only a gay thing. And the thing is, America keeps trying to have everybody be united in one front.
Right.
Everything was under freedom. Well, freedom's not working. Okay, well, everything's under love. Well, love is love. Then through, our people being given rights, then you had homosexuals given rights. Then you have, gay marriage. Then the pedophiles slipped in. Bestiality started slipping in.
You forgot trans.
No, I said trans.
Oh, okay, come on.
All those different things. They tried to say love is love, right? Oh, that's what it was. They went after our people, and they went after interracial. That was like the first biggest thing, and that kind of makes sense to a lot of people, right? Like, black man, a lot of jakes out. They be in the world like, oh man, them snowboard man, they crazy. You got to mess around and get married to one of them. Oh, we want to get married, but it's not legal. We want to get married, but we're facing this obstacle. Well, love is love. It doesn't matter what color. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Then it's love is love. It doesn't matter what gender. All right. Love is love. It doesn't matter what age. And it's like, whoa, y'all start it. Man, this went from. But that's the thing. That's what is it called? The subtlety of Satan. Right. Satan is hardly ever. I don't think like it would be obvious if Satan was a red man with devil horns and I plan on doing it. It'd be like, man, everybody would know what to do. If your enemy is obvious, you know how to fight. But people will convince you Satan doesn't exist. I seen something that said, how are you supposed to beat the devil if you don't believe he exists?
That's the greatest trick that the devil ever played.
If you knew which thoughts were righteous and which ones were wicked, which every thought and which every path was going to lead you down, it would be very easy to choose righteous. Unless you just really was like, I want nothing to do with that.
Right.
But if you literally knew exactly what it was that you were to do, the way that you were supposed to do it, or, okay, if you do this, it's going to have this result, people would be a lot easier able to make those kinds of decisions. But Satan, just like what he told the woman in the garden, he told Eve, he said, you're not going to die. That little bit of doubt, that little bit of
confusion, that little bit of
gray area, because that's all it takes. So the love is love has escalated. All these other different slogans and all this kind of stuff spiraled out of control just by people being able to get in on the tail end of some kind of movement, right?
To the point where the last thing that they want to do is put any kind of negative connotation on the activities of these groups, right? Exactly. They cannot say this is something that affects gay men, and if this continues to grow and spread, eventually it's going to move from primarily affecting the homosexual community to spilling over to the heterosexual community, right? Because not all gay men just sleep with men.
And that would be the issue. And that's why they're trying to, just like with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, started out about empowering so-called Negroes, right?
Right.
Then it quickly turned into, all Black Lives Matter, even the gay ones.
Right.
It's like, oh, there it was. And then now
it's like gays and
everywhere.
Right.
It's the Black Lives Matter flag with the rainbow on the back of it. And there are, homosexual women who are the co-founders and founders and treasurers. And I was like, oh, wow, what was supposed to be our people, roped a whole lot of people in, and then said, well, even the gay ones, right? It's like the letter under the door.
Right.
Take that with you. Let that slip in there. Whole movement is different. And that's why the Most High said, none shall save thee. All these different movements and chances and all these kinds of things that our people have tried to come up with, and none of them have been successful because none of them have had the Most High.
It's not for us.
None of them have had the Most High. So they're trying to make it seem like it's a everybody thing. Shalom, y'all. It's a everybody thing as opposed to it's a homosexual man thing, because then that unites everybody. Well, anybody can get it. Oh my God, you got to be
Right.
careful. You know, it could happen to any one of us. That unites people in their fear, as opposed to saying, well, this is only going to happen to gay people. It's nothing for me to worry about. It's nothing for me to be concerned about. It's much easier to shun someone you see walking around in public. You walking through a restaurant, and you see a gay, you see a man got the outbreak. You like, oh, hold on, y'all, what y'all gonna do with his cup? You know, like,
It's crazy, right? Because if it was something that just affected black people,
oh man,
they would have no problem stating that and separating from us.
oh yeah, 100%. Like, everybody be cool. It's only them. There
Right.
would be no problems isolating us as a group.
Right.
Here's the last article. So while we're talking about that, check this out. The U.S. now has more monkeypox cases than any other non-endemic country.
Passing Spain and the United Kingdom, the United States now has the highest case count for monkeypox cases in non-endemic countries, with the nation's total standing at 3,487 cases after more than 500 new cases were confirmed yesterday by the CDC. Mississippi has identified its first case, meaning only a handful of states have yet to report a case for the pox virus. Last week, Maine also recorded its first case, leaving only Vermont, Minnesota, Wyoming, and Alaska still reporting no cases.
What was that, 4 states?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wow.
And these are probably the least populated states in the country.
I don't know nobody that lives in Wyoming.
Same.
It's
We don't have to. Let me Okay. During a clinician outreach and communication activity, COCA called today, hosted by the CDC, officials said 99.1% of cases are in men, with 13 cases in women, right? So that lines up with the previous article we just read, that this is mostly, primarily, overwhelmingly affecting men who have sex with men, right? Men who have sex with men make up 98.4% of the U.S. cases, and the median age is 35 years.
it's obvious that it's like predominantly gay people, and more than likely what happened is those 13 women are involved with a man that's must be bisexual.
Absolutely.
He must be a bisexual man. Surprise. That's a very unfortunate way to find that out too.
Right.
Because if she doesn't know, all of a sudden she's having these symptoms and she's having these issues. Well, turns out now your man learned some things about him. And that's the crazy part. So it is very similar to AIDS. While that was predominantly a disease found in homosexuals, it can be transmitted to heterosexuals. And the U.S., and crazy part about it is, again, they're trying to, men who have sex with men, even gave them a new acronym, MSM. Wonder where we're going to see that, or if that's going to become something, because everything's being blown up and made into something. 98.4% of the cases are homosexual men. And, of course, it's going rampant in the U.S. because the U.S. this is full-blown Babylon. You can do anything, anywhere, any way. Homosexuality in full-fledged effect. Gay rights and all these different things that, how homosexuals have been advocated for over actual people, over us especially. So wow.
The really crazy thing, right, is it's clear that this country and these services that are supposed to be for protecting what's best for us, right? That's not what it's about, because they don't want to come out and say what it actually is, right? If you need to stop having, you need to be very careful about who you're sleeping with. If you aren't a homosexual man, you shouldn't be sleeping with a homosexual man, period.
Right.
But they won't come out and say that.
Matter of fact, on that note, let's get one verse. Just see what the Bible says about it. Because it's crazy, right? So as I was mentioning that Jake earlier, um, that I mentioned, like I said, he came out as homosexual and he's androgynous and all these different, sayings and stuff like that. It was crazy because I had posted a scripture on there, and people was mad at me,
Right.
like, oh, you look like you wear a dress and you probably do this and this and that, and why you feel you could have DM'd him and you could have done this, and I'm like, it's crazy how everybody's in support of him because literally every other comments, there were only like 2 people in there who had actually said something was wrong. Everybody else was do you, so happy for you, so proud of you. I know this took a lot of bravery. This took a lot of strength. Oh my gosh, you're such an inspiration. And then anybody who is speaking out saying, nah, this is wrong and this is not cool, those are the ones in the comments that everybody had an issue with. Those are the ones in the comments that everybody was attacking. And it's crazy that a lot of them people was probably claiming Christian, claiming to be a follower of Christ, claiming that they believe in the Bible, but yet condoning things that the Bible speaks against and hating the people that are saying something against it with biblical evidence. You have that?
This is Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 13. If a man also lie with mankind, as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them.
So the scriptures say they were supposed to die. Now, we're not in a place where we can execute our laws in the same way we would if we were in our own land, under our own government. But that doesn't change the word of the Most High. He said they shall surely die. So one way or another, you see all these diseases that are coming out. You see all these, viruses and all this kind of stuff that hasn't even been around or has been around for a long time. But they said they didn't even know it was predominantly infecting homosexuals. They never acknowledged it as that. It's nothing for the Most High to change those things and now make it a problem. Now bring that judgment upon those who are not following and keeping his commandments.
That's right.
So hopefully this was informative. This is a little different from the other classes that we do in the sense that it's not strictly scriptural. It's a lot more informational. So I hope it was still interesting and informative to let our people know, to continue to do your research. Don't let this be the only time that you research or look into things because, we do have signs of the end times. We do have a lot of things that are being shown to us for us to be able to understand, to have some level of reference as to where it is that we are as far as prophecy being fulfilled. But the only way to know that is if you're doing your reading, you're doing your research, you're looking into these things and finding where it's happening. So please continue to tune in with us throughout the rest of the week through our lessons. And with that, Israel, we say shalom.
Shalom.